The autumn leaves, crisp and golden, swirled around my feet as I walked through Willow Creek Park. My name is Arthur Penhaligon, and I find solace in the quiet rhythms of nature, much like the gentle melodies I coax from my vintage cello. At 58, my fingers, though a little gnarled with age, still dance across the strings, weaving tales and sound for independent documentaries and animated shorts. It's a niche, certainly, far from the grand orchestral scores that fill blockbuster cinemas, but it's a world where authenticity thrives, and that, for me, is everything. 7 years ago, my life took an unexpected turn, a shift as dramatic as a sudden chord change in a sonata. Clara, my wife of 25 years, announced her departure. It was a Tuesday, the air thick with the scent of rain, much like the day we'd first met at the community garden. "Arthur," she began, her voice strained, "I need more stability. This life isn't enough." She gestured vaguely at my small, sun-drenched studio, filled with stacks of sheet music, a worn velvet armchair, and the ever-present scent of old wood and rosin. "We're barely making ends meet, and with our son, Leo, starting university next year." My heart sank, a heavy stone in a quiet pond. Clara, a brilliant financial consultant, always had a head for figures and a vision for a meticulously planned future. My world, however, was one of improvisation and artistic pursuit. "But my music provides," I countered, though even to my own ears, it sounded like a flimsy defense against her pragmatic logic. She had always been the steady anchor, her income from evergreen wealth management far eclipsing my modest earnings. "Barely," she echoed, her voice softening, but her resolve unyielding. "And what about our dreams, Arthur? Our shared dreams?" She spoke of a grander life, one with predictable budgets and soaring retirement funds, a symphony I had never quite learned to conduct. I didn't argue when she left. Perhaps a part of me, the same part that sought harmony and dissonance, understood. We were two different melodies, once intertwined, now destined for separate compositions. I moved into a smaller cottage by the sea in the charming town of Oak Haven, its windows looking out onto the endless horizon, a canvas for my evolving soundscapes. Clara, meanwhile, flourished at Evergreen, ascending to a prominent leadership role, her name becoming synonymous with success in the financial world. Leo, our thoughtful, observant son, divided his time between us, though he often preferred the salty air of my humble abode and the comforting presence of my cello's resonant tones. Then came Whispers of the Tide, a documentary about the forgotten fishing villages along the coast. I poured my soul into that score, every note a testament to resilience, loss, and the enduring beauty of the human spirit. It was raw, honest, and utterly me. When the Golden Scroll Award for Best Original Score was announced, my quiet world erupted. The phone, usually reserved for calls from Leo or the occasional film director, rang incessantly. Suddenly, I wasn't just Arthur Penhaligon, the local cellist. I was Arthur Penhaligon, Golden Scroll laureate, a voice recognized beyond the gentle shores of Oak Haven. The irony wasn't lost on me. Clara had left seeking security, and now, my music, once deemed unstable, was bringing in a comfortable income. I'd established my own small recording studio, Echoes and Embers, invested wisely, and built a reputation for crafting scores that resonated deeply. The once struggling artist had found his own unique rhythm. Not that Clara would ever acknowledge it, of course. And now, sitting in my cozy cottage, a soft sea breeze rustling the curtains, I held an elegant invitation in my hand. Clara's wedding to Marcus Thorne, a shrewd real estate developer with a penchant for grand pronouncements and an even grander ego. Leo, with his quiet wit, described Marcus as someone who always seemed to be appraising my worth with a critical eye, as if I were a dilapidated property in need of urgent renovation. A small voice within me urged me to decline, to protect the fragile peace I had cultivated. But another, a whisper of curiosity, perhaps even a desire to see how Clara had truly fared, prompted me to RSVP. Sometimes, the most profound acts of self-respect aren't planned. They simply unfold when you stay true to the quiet wisdom of your heart. The day of Clara's wedding arrived bathed in the soft, golden light of a late autumn afternoon. I adjusted the lapels of my best tweed jacket, a familiar sense of calm washing over me as the gentle hum of the train carried me towards the bustling city of Viridian. The venue, the Crystal Conservatory, was exactly as I'd imagined, a soaring glass structure brimming with exotic flora, a testament to Marcus's opulent tastes. I stepped inside, the air fragrant with orchids and the hushed murmurs of Viridian's elite, a stark contrast to the salty air and quiet solitude of Oakhaven. "Dad, you actually made it." Leo's voice, a warm embrace in the opulent space, brought a genuine smile to my face. He looked dashing in a dark suit, his eyes, so like my own, sparkling with a mixture of amusement and affection. "Wouldn't miss it, son," I replied, my gaze sweeping over the shimmering crystal and cascading flowers. "Your mother's touch, I presume?" Leo rolled his eyes, a familiar gesture. "Micromanaging every detail, you know how she is." I did know. Clara's need for control had been a quiet undertow in our marriage, a subtle force that, over time, had gently pulled us apart. "And the groom?" I asked, scanning the elegantly dressed crowd. "Marcus is around somewhere, probably extolling the virtues of his latest development project," Leo muttered, a hint of disdain in his voice. He had never truly warmed to Marcus, despite the lavish gifts and promises of lucrative internships. I spotted Julian across the room, Clara's younger brother, a kind-hearted soul who, unlike his sister, had remained a steadfast friend through the years. Julian, a gifted sculptor, understood the artist's journey, often attending my small recitals in my leaner years. "Uncle Arthur," he exclaimed, embracing me with genuine warmth. "You look absolutely splendid. Success certainly agrees with you." "You too," I replied, noting his impeccably tailored suit. Julian had forged his own path, creating breathtaking public art installations that adorned city squares, a world away from the financial offices Clara now commanded. "Fair warning," he murmured, leaning closer. "Marcus has been asking who invited you. Seems a little threatened." I took a sip of my sparkling cider. "By the humble cellist?" Julian snorted. "Man, he has no idea, does he? Clara never mentioned your golden scroll, or echoes and embers." "Apparently not." A flicker of amusement danced within me. "This should be interesting," Julian said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Especially since he's been telling everyone you're." He stopped abruptly as a tall, impeccably dressed man with silver temples approached, his arm possessively around Clara's waist. Clara looked radiant, a vision in an ivory gown, every inch the poised executive embracing a formidable new partnership. Our eyes met across the space, and for a fleeting moment, something undefinable surprise, perhaps a hint of wistfulness flickered in her gaze. Then, it vanished, replaced by her practiced, gracious smile. "Arthur," she said, her voice cool and composed. "You came." Before I could respond, Marcus stepped forward, extending a hand with the practiced cordiality of a public figure. "So, you're the ex-husband. Clara mentioned you. You teach music, I believe." There it was, the subtle jab, perfectly delivered. "Teach music," I repeated, a gentle smile playing on my lips. "Not precisely." Clara shifted uncomfortably. "Arthur composes film scores," she clarified, though her explanation deliberately omitted the full breadth of my journey. "Fascinating," Marcus said, with the enthusiasm of someone enduring a mandatory cultural event. "Must be creative work. Any films I might have heard of?" Before I could answer, Leo, ever my quiet champion, interjected. "Dad won a golden scroll for Whispers of the Tide and just signed a major contract with Celestial Studios for their new historical series." Marcus's practiced smile faltered, a hairline crack in his polished facade. "A golden scroll? Well, that's unexpected. Life's full of surprises," I said mildly, enjoying his momentary discomposure. Clara quickly steered the conversation, her hand tightening on Marcus's arm, a gesture I recognized from our marriage. It meant, "Stop talking before you embarrass yourself." "Leo, dear, would you show your father to his table? The ceremony is about to begin." As we walked away, Leo muttered, "Sorry about that, Dad. Marcus has been telling everyone you're some struggling cello instructor who couldn't hack it in the real world, and Mom." "Well, Mom didn't correct him." Leo shrugged. "Mom's complicated. I think a part of her needs to believe you're still struggling to justify leaving." I was seated at a table near the periphery of the conservatory, not quite relegated to the outer provinces, but certainly not among the inner circle. Julian joined me minutes later, along with a few distant relatives who regarded me with curious, assessing glances. "You realize you're the evening's enigma, right?" Julian said, a twinkle in his eye. "Half the room is wondering why the ex-husband is here, and the other half is trying to figure out if you're the same Arthur Penhaligon whose scores are captivating audiences." I took a sip of my cider. Let them wonder. The ceremony began as the last rays of the sun dipped below the Viridian skyline, painting the conservatory in hues of rose and lavender. Clara looked breathtaking as she walked down the aisle, every inch the successful executive embarking on an equally formidable union. Looking at her now, confident, poised, so certain of her path, it was hard to recall the younger Clara who had once curled against me on our worn couch, dreaming of simpler joys. As they exchanged vows, I felt a distant echo of melancholy, a quiet acknowledgement of a path not taken. We had loved each other once, but we had desired fundamentally different lives. Perhaps in this, at least, we had both found our own versions of peace. As the ceremony concluded and guests moved towards the reception, Leo appeared at my side. "You all right, Dad?" I smiled at my son, so perceptive and kind despite growing up amidst our fractured family. "I'm perfectly content, my boy. Your mother seems happy." Leo nodded. "She is, mostly. Though sometimes I catch her looking at your old concert programs when she thinks no one's watching." "We all have our quiet memories," I said softly. "Even those of us who seem to have everything meticulously arranged." The reception was in full swing, crystal glasses chiming as Viridian's elite mingled beneath the soaring glass ceiling. I remained at my table, nursing a glass of sparkling water, observing the intricate social dance. This was Clara's world now: boardrooms and charity galas, power brokers and influential figures. "Not exactly your scene, is it?" Julian appeared beside me, loosening his tie. "Never was, really," I replied. "Nor Clara's, once upon a time." Julian mused, his gaze thoughtful. I raised an eyebrow. "People change. Do they?" Julian leaned against the glass railing. "Or do they just get better at pretending to be what others expect?" Before I could respond, a sudden commotion near the main floral arrangement caught our attention. Leo was engaged in what appeared to be a hushed but heated discussion with Marcus. Though their voices were low, their body language spoke volumes. Leo, rigid with quiet anger. Marcus, his finger jabbing the air between them. My paternal instincts stirred. "Excuse me." As I approached, fragments of their conversation drifted to me. "Disrespectful to your mother," Marcus was saying. "After everything she's done. You know nothing about my father." Leo shot back, his voice strained. "You never bothered to." "I know enough," Marcus interrupted, his voice edged with disdain. "A man who places his artistic whims above providing a stable future for his family. Is there a problem?" I kept my voice level, placing a protective hand on Leo's shoulder. Marcus turned, his politician's mask slipping to reveal genuine annoyance. "Family discussion, Penhaligon. Nothing that concerns you anymore." "My son concerns me," I said, a steel thread beneath my calm tone. "Always." Leo squeezed my hand. "Marcus thinks my summer internship at Echoes and Embers is beneath my potential. He wants me to work for his new development project instead." I met Marcus's gaze steadily. "Leo makes his own choices. He always has. Choices have consequences," Marcus replied, his voice dripping with condescension. "Clara and I want what's best for his future. A serious career, not following his father's bohemian path." The dismissiveness in his voice was unmistakable. 20 years ago, it might have stung, back when I'd wondered if Clara had been right, if my stubbornness had cost me my family. But that uncertainty had long since evaporated, replaced by a quiet confidence born of success on my own terms. "My chosen path seems to have worked out just fine," I said mildly. "But then, some people measure success by bank balances and social standing, others by the courage to follow their passion despite the risks." Marcus's face flushed. "Easy to romanticize passion when you're not responsible for others." "Dad paid for half my university tuition," Leo interjected, his voice firm. "Even when he was barely making ends meet, he never missed a payment. Never missed a recital or a parent-teacher conference. So don't you dare." "Leo," I said gently, a calming hand on his arm. It's all right. He took a deep breath, composing himself with effort. I need some air, he said, and walked towards a secluded terrace. Marcus watched him go, then turned back to me, his eyes narrowed. You filled his head with impractical notions. The arts are a hobby, not a career. I smiled. Tell that to my golden scroll, or my accountant. His expression hardened. You got lucky. Lightning strikes once. But Leo deserves better than a gamble. What Leo deserves, I said, my voice unwavering, is to be surrounded by people who believe in his capabilities, not just their rigid vision of what he should become. I walked away then, leaving Marcus staring after me, his carefully constructed narrative about the failed musician ex-husband beginning to unravel. As dinner concluded, Clara approached our table, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Having a good time? She asked, her voice carrying the professional warmth she'd perfected over the years. A beautiful ceremony, I offered. Marcus seems confident. He is. Clara glanced around to ensure we weren't overheard. Listen, about Leo's internship. It's not up for discussion, I said calmly. He's an adult making his own choices. Clara sighed. Music is unstable, Arthur. You got lucky, but... Lucky, I repeated. 20 years of dedication isn't luck, Clara. It's a craft, honed with patience and perseverance. You know what I mean, she said, avoiding my gaze. For every success like yours, thousands of artists struggle their entire lives. I studied her, realizing she still couldn't admit she'd been wrong about my career. And yet, here we were. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us until Julian, ever the diplomat, saved the moment, appearing with fresh glasses of sparkling cider. To new beginnings, he toasted, winking at me. Clara excused herself to rejoin Marcus, who had been watching our interaction with poorly disguised suspicion. You know, Julian said once she was gone, she kept your old cello. The one you had in our tiny apartment after you left. It's in her study now. The revelation caught me off guard. That cello, a gift from my grandfather, had been a constant companion through my leanest years, a symbol of unwavering commitment to my craft despite uncertainty. Interesting choice of memento, I murmured. People hold on to strange things, Julian shrugged. Speaking of which, Marcus is giving a speech soon. Should be. Illuminating. Sure enough, Marcus took the microphone minutes later, a glass of champagne in hand. He thanked the guests for attending, praised Clara's intelligence and beauty, and then pivoted unexpectedly. Some questioned our relationship, he said, his gaze drifting pointedly in my direction. Some believed Clara deserved someone who couldn't provide stability, who chose artistic indulgence over family responsibility. The room tensed. Leo, seated at the bridal party table, stared at his plate. Clara's smile remained fixed, though her knuckles whitened around her champagne flute. But tonight proves that proper choices lead to proper outcomes, Marcus continued, his voice ringing with self-congratulation. Success isn't accidental. It's deliberate. It comes from sound judgment and traditional values. Julian whispered, is he seriously turning a wedding toast into a campaign speech? I watched Clara, recognizing the slight flush creeping up her neck, a tell from our marriage that meant she was mortified but fiercely hiding it. Some paths lead to dead ends, Marcus concluded, while others lead to prosperity. I'm grateful Clara found her way to the right one. Polite applause followed as he returned to Clara's side, kissing her cheek triumphantly. What a blowhard, Julian muttered. You okay? I nodded, surprisingly unaffected. Perfect, actually. And I was. Watching Marcus's desperate need to establish dominance, I felt nothing but clarity and the quiet certainty that the next phase of the evening would be very interesting indeed. The reception shifted into the dancing portion of the evening. I remained at my table, content to observe as Viridian's elite performed the intricate social choreography they perfected over decades. Clara and Marcus moved among their guests, accepting congratulations and making connections their natural habitat. Aren't you going to dance, Dad? Leo appeared beside me, cheeks flushed from a celebratory glass of ginger ale. Not really my scene, sweetheart. He rolled his eyes. Come on, one dance won't kill you. Unable to refuse him, I allowed myself to be led to the dance floor as we swayed to a gentle jazz standard, ironically, one I'd rearranged for a film last year. I caught Clara watching us, her expression unreadable. Marcus is still fuming about my internship, Leo said quietly. Let him fume. He told Mom it's ridiculous that I would waste my education on a frivolous industry when I could be making connections in finance or politics. I kept my expression neutral despite my rising irritation. And what did you tell him? That I'd rather create something meaningful than spend my life selling influence. Leo grinned mischievously. He didn't appreciate that. As the song ended, Marcus appeared, his politician smile firmly in place, though his eyes remained cold. Mind if I borrow Leo for a moment? Councilman Hawthorne wants to discuss summer internship opportunities in the city. Actually, Leo began. It's Leo's choice, I interjected calmly. Marcus's smile tightened. Some choices require adult guidance. Not everyone understands what's at stake. You'd be surprised what I understand, I replied evenly. Would I? His veneer slipped slightly. Let's be honest, Penhaligon. You're a middle school dropout who got lucky with a little tune. What could you possibly understand about building a real future? The nearby conversations quieted. Heads turned towards our exchange. Dad, Leo warned, sensing the tension. Marcus continued, emboldened by alcohol and an audience. Why don't you do everyone a favor and cut ties with my wife and her family? Your presence is just uncomfortable. I studied him calmly, suddenly understanding Clara's attraction to this man. He represented everything she thought she wanted: status, security, respectability. You know what's uncomfortable, Marcus? I said, my voice quiet but carrying. Having a significant portion of my financial assets held at your wife's bank, while listening to you demonstrate exactly why that's a poor investment decision. Marcus's face froze. What? I think I'll close my accounts on Monday, I continued conversationally. My financial advisors have been suggesting it for months, but I kept them open out of respect for Clara. Clearly, that respect isn't mutual. The silence around us was absolute. Clara had appeared at Marcus's side, her face ashen. Arthur, she began. Marcus didn't mean. Oh, I think he meant exactly what he said, I replied calmly. And I meant what I said about the accounts. Marcus's expression cycled rapidly through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror as the reality of who I was and what he had just done sank in completely. The aftermath of my announcement rippled through the reception like a stone dropped in still water. Conversations halted, replaced by urgent whispers and surreptitious glances. Marcus stood paralyzed, his face ashen as the full consequences of his actions sank in. Clara broke the silence first. Arthur, perhaps we should discuss this privately. Nothing to discuss, I replied calmly. Marcus made his position quite clear. Julian appeared at my side, barely containing his glee. Man, you should see the bank president's face right now. He looks like someone just canceled Christmas. Marcus recovered enough to attempt damage control. There's clearly been a misunderstanding. I had no idea that you were a successful composer, I supplied, or a major depositor at your wife's bank. Which part confused you exactly? Several guests poorly disguised their amusement. Leo watched the exchange with undisguised satisfaction. This is hardly the appropriate setting. Marcus hissed, his politician's mask slipping further. You seemed comfortable enough insulting me in this setting, I observed. Interesting how propriety only matters when you're on the receiving end. Clara placed a restraining hand on Marcus's arm as he opened his mouth to retort. Perhaps we should rejoin our other guests, she suggested tightly, as they retreated. Leo joined me. That was epic, Dad, he whispered. I've never seen Marcus speechless before. Not my intention, I replied honestly, but I'm done being the villain in their narrative. The band resumed, playing as the wedding party attempted to restore normalcy. I moved towards the exit, my purpose for attending fulfilled. Julian intercepted me. Leaving so soon? The show's just getting started. The bank's executive team is huddled in the corner having what appears to be a complete meltdown. I shook my head. I've made my point spectacularly. Julian agreed. You know, Clara never told anyone about your success. I think she needed to believe you were still struggling to justify her choices. That insight resonated more than I expected. Perhaps we all construct narratives that allow us to sleep at night, that make our decisions seem wise and necessary rather than simply human. Take care of Leo, I said, embracing him. And yourself. As I waited for the elevator, I heard quick footsteps behind me. I turned to find Clara, slightly breathless. You're leaving? She asked. I've stayed long enough. She studied me, really seeing me perhaps for the first time in years. Were you this successful when we were together? I smiled sadly. No, but I was always this determined. The elevator doors opened, offering escape from a conversation 20 years overdue. Arthur, Clara said quietly, about the accounts. We found ourselves in the quiet hallway outside the reception, the muffled sounds of celebration creating an ironic backdrop for our conversation. Was that necessary? Clara asked, her voice tight. Threatening the bank over personal insults? Not threats, I replied calmly. Marcus made his feelings clear, and I'm making a business decision based on that information. She sighed, smoothing her wedding dress absently. He doesn't know you like I do. He doesn't understand. That's just it, Clara, I interrupted gently. You don't know me anymore either. You've built this narrative where I'm still the struggling musician you left behind, where your decision was the only sensible choice. Her eyes met mine, a flash of painful recognition crossing her face. Why didn't you ever tell him? I asked. About the golden scroll, echoes and embers. Any of it? Clara looked away. It complicated the story. Your story, you mean? She didn't deny it. I built a life based on certain choices, Arthur. Certain values. If you succeeded on your own terms, then maybe you were wrong about what truly matters. I finished quietly. We stood in silence, 20 years of unspoken truths hanging between us. I wasn't wrong about everything, she finally said. We wanted different lives. That hasn't changed. No, I agreed. It hasn't. From inside the reception, we heard Marcus's raised voice, followed by the bank president's urgent tones. Clara closed her eyes briefly. He'll recover, I said. Politicians always do. And the accounts? She asked. I considered this. The truth was, I kept my money at Evergreen Wealth Management partly from inertia and partly from some lingering sense of connection to Clara. Neither was a good enough reason to stay. I'll transfer most of it, I decided. But I'll leave enough to show there's no personal vendetta. This isn't about punishing you, Clara. Relief flickered across her face, followed by something more complex, perhaps recognition that even now, I was considering her well-being. You know, she said softly, sometimes I hear your compositions on film soundtracks. I always know it's you, even before seeing the credits. There's a particular quality to your work, an Arthur Penhaligon signature. The admission surprised me. You follow my career? From a distance, she conceded. It would have been easier if you'd failed. The honesty was refreshing after years of carefully maintained narratives. Probably, I agreed with a small smile. But when did I ever take the easy path? Clara laughed, a genuine sound I hadn't heard in years. Never. That was the problem. And maybe the point. Leo appeared in the doorway, his expression cautious. Everything okay? Clara composed herself, stepping back. Your father was just leaving. I nodded. Congratulations on your marriage, Clara. I mean that. As I walked towards the elevator, Leo followed. I'll walk you out. Behind us, Clara returned to her wedding reception, to Marcus and damage control, and the life she had chosen. But something had shifted. A long-held tension finally released. Leo rode with me in the taxi, unusually quiet as Viridian's lights blurred past our windows. You okay? I asked, studying his profiliso like his mother's, yet with an openness Clara had long since traded for professional polish. Yeah, he said, just processing Marcus's face when you mentioned the accounts. Worth every awkward family dinner I'll endure for the next decade. I laughed. I wasn't trying to create drama. Of course not, Leo smirked. You just casually mentioned $500 million during a wedding toast. He had a point. Part of me, a small, petty part, one rarely acknowledged, had enjoyed watching Marcus's carefully constructed worldview crumble in real time. Do you think Mom knew? Leo asked suddenly. About how successful you've become? I considered this. She knew some. Maybe not the extent. She kept your first Golden Scroll nomination certificate in her office drawer, Leo said. I found it when I was looking for a stapler once. She shut the drawer so fast when I asked about it. This revelation settled uncomfortably. I'd imagined Clara dismissing my achievements, not secretly tracking them. People are complicated, I said finally. Even parents. Leo nodded. I remember when she left. You never said a bad word about her. Not once. She's your mother. Still, most divorced dads don't take the high road like that. We arrived at my building, but Leo made no move to get out. What you said tonight, About following your passion despite the risks. He hesitated. I've been thinking about deferring law school. I turned to face him fully. For music production? He nodded. Your studio internship made me realize I'm good at this, Dad. Really good. But Marcus says. What does your mother say? I interrupted gently. Leo looked surprised. She said I should talk to you, actually, that you'd understand better than she would. Something warm bloomed in my chest. After everything, Clara still recognized what I could offer our son, that she couldn't permission to choose an uncertain path. Law school will always be there, I said. But if music production lights you up inside, that fire is worth following, even if it's risky. Especially then, I replied. Safety rarely leads to fulfillment. Leo leaned over to hug me, his embrace fierce. Thanks, Dad. As he pulled back, his phone chimed with a text. It's Mom. Apparently, Marcus is in full damage control mode. The bank president looks ready to murder him. I winced. Not my intention. Maybe not, Leo grinned. But sometimes karma works through unexpected channels. He kissed my cheek before sliding out of the taxi. I'll call you tomorrow. This wedding reception is about to become legendary. As the taxi pulled away, I realized something profound. I no longer needed Clara to acknowledge my success. I no longer needed Marcus to respect my choices. I had built exactly the life I wanted on my own terms. And that, in itself, was a profound victory. 3 months passed. Autumn faded into winter, and Oakhaven transformed under a rare, pristine snowfall. I was working late in my studio, composing a new piece that evoked the quiet beauty of the snow, when my phone rang. Clara's number appeared on the screen. We'd had minimal contact since the wedding, apart from a brief, polite email exchange regarding the account transfers. I had kept my word, moving most funds but maintaining enough to avoid appearing vindictive. Clara, I answered, surprised. Everything okay? Yes, she said, her voice carefully neutral. I'm calling because Evergreen Wealth Management is hosting its annual Arts Endowment Dinner next month. We'd like you to be the keynote speaker. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. You want me to speak at a bank function after everything? It's my idea, actually, she admitted. The theme is unconventional paths to success. Seemed appropriate. The irony wasn't lost on me. What does Marcus think about this? A pause. Marcus and I are taking some time apart. This was unexpected. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? She asked, a hint of the old Clara breaking through her professional veneer. Yes, I said truthfully. I never wish you unhappiness. She sighed. The wedding debacle was just a symptom. Marcus wanted a trophy wife who would support his political ambitions, not a CEO with her own opinions. His loss, I said simply. Another pause. Leo showed me his music production portfolio, Clara continued. He's talented, like his father. He is. I agreed, waiting for the usual concerns about career stability. I told him I'd help him defer law school, Clara said instead. That sometimes the less conventional path is the right one. I nearly dropped the phone. You did. Don't sound so shocked, Arthur. I'm capable of growth. Her tone was dry, but I heard the smile in her voice. About the endowment dinner, I said. I'll do it. You haven't even asked about the fee. Consider it a favor between old friends. Clara was quiet for a moment. Are we friends? We share a remarkable son and 2 decades of history, I replied. I'd say we're something. Something, she echoed. I suppose that's accurate. After we hung up, I sat at my cello, fingers finding a melody I hadn't played in years, the first composition I'd written after our separation. It had begun as something mournful, but evolved into something unexpected, hopeful, like life itself, I supposed. My phone pinged with a text from Leo. Dad, just heard from Mom about the keynote. Full circle moment much, I smiled, thinking how differently things had unfolded from what I'd expected the night of the wedding. I hadn't attended seeking vindication or revenge. Though both had found me regardless, what I'd found instead was something more valuable. Peace with the past, pride in my son, and the quiet certainty that staying true to myself had been the right choice all along. Some might call it revenge, the humble cellist becoming the keynote, the struggling musician winning acclaim, the ex-husband finding contentment while the new marriage faltered. But I saw it differently. This wasn't revenge. It was life playing out its own perfect composition.